Start at www.qb.pl in 91 languages in chapter TS001. Whirls and Affinities. Descartes. René Descartes lived from 1596 to 1650, a long time ago. And we need him here, so we will revive him for a moment from oblivion. Descartes, this trickster, opposed the scholastics who proclaimed that the planets move in a vacuum. According to Descartes, the space is filled with a ubiquitous substance which he called the plenum. This substance consists of miniature particles which, by acting on each other, cause each other to centrifugal movements, and thus whirl around each other, creating vortices and vortex affinities. Through mutual whirls and centrifugal forces, as a result of these interactions, planets and suns, and all things, celestial bodies are formed. He published his book Principia Philosophiae in Amsterdam in 1656. It was a long time ago and he already knew how to invent one, because these planets had to float in something so that their mutual contacts would have an informational and reactionary flow. What was the plenum? Mass or matter or magnetism? Or maybe the rush of the wind? According to this theory, it should be assumed that all celestial matter spins in the manner of a large vortex, in the center of which is the sun. As with the formation of currents in rivers, individual blades of grass can be observed to flow with the river, while others rotate around their center, and the faster they spin the closer they are to the center. In this way, according to Descartes in his Principia Philosophiae, one can easily imagine the formation and movements of planets. The nature of limitlessness is such that everything has its own vortex, and in this vortex, the walker, when it turns the vortex to the point of departure, sees as if it bends the space, all around, penetrating through the center of the vortex and exiting it, looking back. Also the eye sees south and north simultaneously while closing its own vortex. Likewise, the surface of the earth is endless and unlimited. Swedenborg. Emanuel Swedenborg lived from 1688 to 1772. His theory of the formation of the solar system is strongly influenced by Descartes. Opera Philosophia et Mineralia, published in 1734 in Dresden. As the smallest particles, he considered the points which, in their pursuit of motion, twisted each other in spiral rotations, and thus formed the primal structures. He called them, first or ordinary finite. He then believed that by accessing the Praocean magnetic element, a Cartesian vortex was formed from the solar prasipa, and in it a fourth-order finite was formed. They formed a kind of crust around this solar vortex. Swedenborg identified this vortex with the ancient word chaos. The crust bulges and swells until it finally cracks and breaks into pieces, forming an equatorial belt. The released matter then forms at the level of the zodiac in the form of spheres. These again, as self-building planets and satellites, orbit the sun. Then the influx of outside matter causes the building of a complete planetary system. In this way, Swedenborg's theory comes close to the concepts formulated later in the 18th century by Buffon, Kant and Laplace. Besant and Leadbeter. In 1895, after the birth of Christ, theosophists Annie Besant and Charles W. Leadbeter began working on a 10-year series of experiments. Using meditation techniques, they tried to penetrate the interior of matter, deeply at the micro level. They assumed that matter manifests itself in 7 states, aggregates understood, among others, as etheric, supraetheric, subatomic, atomic. These are what they can reach and penetrate through meditation. For a long time, Newton's hypothesis that atoms are permanent, indivisible and impenetrable creations held firmly on. However, as early as 1895, after the birth of Christ, it was assumed that these creatures again consisted of smaller electrically charged particles, i.e. electrons. In the rotating hydrogen atoms they targeted, they found smaller particles where points of light appeared. The so-called subatomic or hyper-metaproto elements. These smallest particles are made up of each of the 10 interpenetrating spirals or vortices that made up the heart-shaped structure. These particles formed into structures or seedlings. Besant and Leadbeter distinguished a total of 7 geometrically basic forms of these buds. They described it in the book Occult Chemistry in 1908. Thus, women's thongs did not exist yet, but General Tariq had already put them on and used them according to their function. May God reward you in fat children. The cities will crumble and the earth will remain. Start at www.qb.pl in 91 languages in chapter TS001.